you have to have a dauntless spirit about you to be in this lane. You have to work when nobody's working. You've got to play this like mental gymnastics with yourself where you're always trying to motivate yourself and keep yourself going.
So, Claudius, you're a lifelong techie with a strong background in software development. You've done like cloud technologies, Web3, AI, and you've also had two successful startups with exits. And now you're working for Generator as a mentor and also as an investor. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one successful exit working on this startup.
Okay. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about like your journey?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to. So I'll actually start with adult Claudius versus kid Claudius.
Okay, it's perfect.
So interestingly enough, I had an opportunity to work with Generator in their G Alpha program, which is like their pre-accelerator incubation type of program.
Okay.
Had a really great opportunity to be able to work with the team on a VR startup. So we were building a really cool VR idea. Of course, I was the technical piece behind that. I had the opportunity to pitch. One of my colleagues, they were like, "We're not going to pitch. Like, I don't have the ability to. I'm going through something right now." I'm just like, "Then who's going to pitch?" They're like, "Well, you can pitch." I'm like, well, look, I've never ran from a challenge in my life. I'm not scared of nothing. So, hey, why not? I'll pitch. So then I went ahead and took that opportunity, had a really good pitch night. Then I had the opportunity to connect with some of the generator folks afterwards. They were like, wow, you did a great job with the pitching. You know, how would you think about, being on the other side of, the curtain a little bit?
Yeah.
I was like, that'd be really amazing. I don't really know too much about venture capital, but
Yeah.
I would be loving to take the opportunity to learn more about it. So
Hmm.
I got to be under the tutelage of my mentor that I had in the program, and then
Hmm.
also just somebody that was really really good at venture capital and knew a ton of stuff. Soaked up everything like a sponge. I spent like years, like the last 2 years, several years, learning everything that I can, putting it into practice, and I would say a lot of good fortune landed on my side because a lot of the good things happened with my venture capital career so far.
Well, it seems like that good fortune that's landed on you is a credit to you too, where you took on the challenge. You had just had the mindset that I'm gonna get through it. It's a challenge, but I'm not gonna back away from it. You didn't run away from it, and when you did take on the challenge, it seems like you learned really, really well as well. So you just absorbed the knowledge. And to me, I've noticed that as a commonality of people who, just even getting into startup industry are people who take on the challenges. Do you want to talk a little bit more about those challenges?
Yeah, I would say that, you have to have a dauntless spirit about you to be in this lane. You have to work when nobody's working. You've got to play this like mental gymnastics with yourself where you're always trying to motivate yourself and keep yourself going. And then, of course, you have to have that healthy spirit of competition. Luckily for me, I was raised with siblings, so I've always had that spirit of competition where they would do amazing things too. I think my siblings are equally as amazing and talented as I am, but I
Mhm.
always try to one up them. Like, you guys are great. I want to be the best. Um, but it always comes from like a healthy place of competition as well, because I'm also their biggest cheerleaders and supporters, just like
Yeah.
they are for me as well. If you see the work that I've done in the community, you see my siblings really a part of that in one way, shape, or form. So I really think that as a person that's going to be either a VC, an investor, or a founder, you really have to have a dauntless spirit. There's tons of times where I'm pouring over pitch decks, or like I was working and mentoring a startup today that's in a different program, and I was telling the young man, like, after going through this, like, let's slow down your pitch and do it like this. Let's
Mhm.
speed up your pitch and see what it's like when you go up tempo. Just always trying to find that perfect balance of what works. Like I said, luckily for me, I've had a lot of success in mentorship as well too. Some of the startups that I've mentored have gone on to raise considerable amounts of money, but it's not just about the money. It's also making sure that that founder psychology is really locked in.
Oh, yeah. Psychology is so important because not because you're, for yourself like managing your focus and your drive to keep going, but also for like people you're managing, right? People you're mentoring and whatnot. You have to know how to talk to people. Like it is a critical skill. So a lot of tech people nowadays, what I've noticed is like, we get to work from home. It's very lucky that we do, but it might be giving people a false idea of like how to succeed in life, in my opinion, where it's like you actually have to go out there and talk to people. Otherwise, you're not moving. You're not going to be moving up, like kind of doing more with your life. Essentially, you need the opportunity of like that face-to-face talk, but also being able to handle people.
Yeah, I think that you have to strike a good balance with that. At first, when I used to have one of my close friends that was a founder before I was, and he'd always say like, "Hey, you need to get out there and you need to talk to people." And I'm
Yep.
like, "Yeah, I do talk to people all the time. Like, I'm not, I'm not shy. I like to talk to people." And he's like, "No, you really have to like put yourself in these immersive environments, whether it's like a networking event or these big conferences or
Mhm.
going to opportunities where it's just like a tech mixer or entrepreneurial mixer. Like you have
Mhm.
to really get out there and network." And I'm like, okay, I mean, that sounds easy enough. And then, I kind of jumped into the scene and then I was like, wow, like this is like a whole,
Yeah.
new world. Like this is really
Yeah.
cool. And for some people, it's kind of scary, right? They're like, oh man, like it's so many people. Okay, I'm just going to talk to like one or two people, then I'm out of here. And I'm
Right.
just like, look,
Right.
I'll stay here all night if y'all will let me,
Yeah.
because this is just so much fun.
Yeah. Well, this is a curiosity, but it's also like what you said about your brothers and sisters. It's like you wanted to be the best. But you kind of did it in a cooperative way, right? When you put yourself into a situation, you look around everyone around you and they're networking, they're talking to each other. You're like, oh, I want to do that, right? I want to be amongst them. I want to be like the best. So you kind of just like you don't run away from it, right? You challenge yourself to get better at it. So it seems like that from your childhood really helped you out in this situation as well, just being able to
Sports too.
adapt.
I
Yeah.
played sports for a long time. Played sports at a pretty high level. Soccer. Had the opportunity to play at some really really cool, interesting clubs and places. And I think from that always wanting to be the best and always having to drive yourself forward. Number one, because you could lose an opportunity if you're not performing well week to week. That really, I carry that same type of mentality into my job as well. I
Mhm.
love everything that I do at Generator. To me, it's more than a job. It's an opportunity to change the lives of people. It's the opportunity to impact my community. It's the opportunity to bring a broadened sense of ecosystem to the region where I was born and raised. So I'm always
Mhm.
thankful to Generator for that opportunity. And then when I think about like how I continue to spur myself forward, I learn from my colleagues every single day. I'm just like, wow, like I love what she did with that. Hey,
Mhm.
you got 15 minutes to talk about this, or wow, like so and so's Airtable looks amazing, like, or
Right.
her automations are like crushing it. Like, can you walk me through that? I'm never missing a beat on picking the brain of like my colleagues, and I feel like when you stand on the shoulders of giants, that's how you grow more. You can never think that you know enough or you know everything. You always got to be humble and willing to learn more and more, because then you just add in more tools to your arsenal.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. I think like one of the things that I didn't know before like joining the networking community and startup and businesses in general was like how much you have to be open to the idea that you're wrong. You don't know enough, right? Because you have to kind of balance that, you know, balance the attitude of like being the best, but also realizing that you don't know enough as much as you think you do, right? So you kind of have to have a sense of being like humble, but also like that attitude of I'm going to be the best, right?
Absolutely. And even on the customer discovery side of things too, I think that's the main kicker, right? Especially when you have like you're riding high of like a success like I have, where you're like,
Yeah.
oh no, I built something that everybody wanted and it did well. Now it's kind of like, well, maybe you could do that again, right? Maybe you could build something that everybody else wants again. But that's a horrible mentality to take into any startup, right?
Mhm.
Because then you're already setting yourself up for failure. You're putting
Right.
yourself on a pedestal where you think, oh, I've got this figured out. No, you got to go talk to the actual people that you're solving the pain points for, or
Right.
the jobs to be done by the folks that you're actually putting in their hands that product or that service. You need to get their perspective and their point of view, and they have to tell you. And then once they tell you, enough people have to be willing to pay for it before you even have a business.
Right.
Or sometimes the market might not even, support the great thing that you've built or what you think you've built.
Yeah. I mean, the market is humbling, right? And you got to carry that humble attitude with you all the time in order to make it, to be honest. So let's talk about a little bit about what you're doing in the area. Like you're doing, you're working with Generator to create like innovative technologies and working with startups for social good, right? Do you want to talk a bit more about your work that you're doing and like what social good in general is?
Yeah, I would love to do that. So when we talk about, just like a disclaimer, right? I am the social impact program director for our justice technology program. So that's like my official role and title. It's a very rewarding position. I get to work with startups that are using technology to solve a lot of crucial problems in society. What some of them have been able to do is really, really, I would say, transformative. Whether it's health equity, fin equity, formerly incarcerated people, or creating other opportunities for people who are returning citizens and putting them on a better pathway for success where the system may have failed them, or ending that cycle of incarceration and trying to break it from the jump, or at the tail end of it, and trying to reframe like how society even interacts with folks who are returning citizens. I think that's one of the most amazing things that I've been able to empower on my side of things. And I would say that it's really unique in that I get to work with really talented founders that some have lived experience, and then others are really just like, this is a big problem in Detroit. This is a big problem in New York. This is a big problem in this major metropolitan city. And then they're going out and creating these unique solutions to solve it. So I think that whenever I get the opportunity to work with founders that are doing amazing things, and even some that are asynchronous as well too. I work with a lot of founders who don't necessarily come through the program, but Generator touches a lot of people who are adjacent to our programs as well. So I've got to work with a lot of really great founders and organizations that do a lot of social good, that are helping people, stop wasteful spending in FSA and HSA so that more people can use these services for medical care and medical based products or things that they need for themselves or their families. For people who are doing like insure equity, right? Trying to get people who have the ability to develop, opportunities in their local communities, but maybe suffering from a poor credit score, to fix their credit and then also show credit worthiness as well. Founders that are solving the crisis of felon friendly housing, not disenfranchising a group of people who are marginalized, but helping them, reintegrate into society, giving them the basic necessity, which is a place to live, and then helping them to, right their wrongs. So I think that these opportunities, you can't take them for granted when it comes to the work that I'm able to be a part of. And I think that's really amazing. And then even further, being a part of the DC, Maryland, even Virginia ecosystem, what we're able to do here is really amazing too. I do a lot of work in Baltimore. I do a lot of work in DC as well. I get to touch Virginia every now and then, but most of the work is done in DC and Baltimore, and then even in the middle parts of Maryland as well. I'm typically going out to a lot of events. I host VC Day, DMV. We had different events like Venture Vista, the Investor Brunch, just a bunch of different things locally. I support my teammates in New York, a lot of my family and friends in New York as well, when they're doing different opportunities for pitch competitions, collaborations, anything that we can to move things forward. And this year I'm excited to partner with New Wave Foundation as well on some things.
That's awesome, man. Like you got your hands on a ton of stuff, so I can imagine. Like, I don't know if you're sleeping at night at all, but that's really awesome. That's really awesome, and I really love the aspect of like bringing technology to actually do good. Because I don't know if you've seen Silicon Valley, but there's that one scene in TechCrunch where every company that's presenting on stage is saying, to make the world a better place. Oh, yes, we're making the world a better place. So every company says that, right? Every startup says the same thing. But at the end of the day, what most people are looking for is that get rich quick kind of scheme. Like, oh, I'm going to come up with an idea that's just going to blow up and I'm going to be a billionaire, right? But this is more like, all right, there's actual problems. Like a business at the end of the day is supposed to solve a problem. It seems like what the projects that you are working on, they're doing that. They're actually looking to help other people, ease their pain and make the world legitimately like make the world a better place. And that's really, really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Climate change is a real thing. environmental opportunities for impact are, very, very important. Health equity as well,
Mhm.
giving people access to quality health care. All these things are very important. And it's fun to be a champion for these different causes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, especially now when there's so much divide between the haves and the have-nots, right? And how do we create solutions that bridges that gap a little bit more than just fighting it with each other, right? On social media. So
Absolutely.
yeah, and I think like that's the travesty that's gone on in our, around the world really, between classes on social media and like different types of people. And I just kind of got completely over it. And I was like, I want to actually do something about it. And that's why like I started digging more into the business and startup scene. It's like, how do we, bring people together? It's about solving problems, not talking about solving problems.
Yep.
So that's really awesome. And so you said like you're doing a lot of workshops for startups.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, my background's in tech. A lot of times people are finding that the folks that are coming through their cohorts are non-technical. So they're like, okay, well, I need to find a tech founder.
Mhm.
Okay, sure. There's a million different ways that you can do that, right? And some of those people are stalling on their ideas because they're just like, I don't have the help that I need, or I don't have the funding that I need to be able to go pay and acquire this talent either.
Right.
So a lot of times I'm helping other ecosystems, including my own, of course, but other ecosystems as well, bridge that gap by coming in, doing workshops on, this is how you build an MVP. This is how you get it off the ground. Here's some tools that you can use. Here's a quick and dirty way on how you can leverage these tools for your advantage and build out really, really good products. Or here's a way that you can take your most critical features, give them to customers and say, here's a product, and it doesn't have to have all the bells and shiny whistles, but it's just something that can be tested and measured and iterated upon, and helping them get to that point as quickly as possible. So sometimes, I think, when people come back to me and they're telling me like, hey, like you helped me build my first MVP and we did it within an hour of your session. I went back and watched the recording and I did what
Yeah.
you said. It's so fulfilling to know that. And of course, some things take a little bit more time and more effort. So, I always tell folks like feel free to reach out to me at any point in time. But I think being able to short run that MVP development process is a testament to all the tools that are available that I'm even able to recommend, like Figma and the like.
Mhm.
But it's also a testament to all the builders in the ecosystem that are able to then show folks that are non-technical, like this is the way that you can get something out the door before you bring on somebody that is technical to then take it to the next level.
Yeah, and that's really awesome because like non-technical folks who might have an idea, right? They might have a great idea. They just don't know where to get started. They have like no resources. So it's really awesome. Like, you just bring those people on and you can be like, hey, we know how to do this. We kind of have tools built in. You might not know about it. That's awesome. So could you are there like different challenges that non-technical founders face versus technical founders face? Or is like, do you find that technical founders are generally like ahead of the game?
Yeah, I would say, and I don't want to seem too biased because there's a
Yeah.
tons of non-technical founders that have done amazing things,
Mhm.
even more so than even technical folks. I think there's a big component of product development that goes along with being technical. And I think this is the challenge for technical folks. If you start talking about what are the challenges on that side of things, it's the business acumen. It's also the product development for some people. Some folks are just like, I'm technical. I'm in hot demand right now. I can just go learn what you know. I can just go learn sales and all this type of stuff. And that's the attitude of some people that are technical. But I think that the challenges come into like product development. How do I iterate at certain points? How do I listen to feedback and continue to do that rather than just continue to build out features? It's slowing things down because you just want to keep going at 100 miles an hour for some technical founders. On the flip side of things, for those non-technical founders, what I think is challenging for them is like they'll hear things like, oh, Webflow, Bubble, and they don't realize that there's a learning curve that comes to those platforms themselves. It's just like, oh yeah, no code. It should be as simple as like just snapping some blocks together, but it's not, right? It's still not you physically having to do all that code, but you still have to know some type of design theory. And even if it's not to like the most granular level, you still have to have some knowledge of it. I think the learning curve for Webflow and all these Webflow maxis out there, please do not come after me because I actually like the founder of Webflow. I love his story, but it does take about 3 months to really get pretty decent at Webflow. And I don't think non-technical folks are really ready for that stark reality.
Right. And it's almost like you kind of, I have my own opinions about no code solutions because they're not very forgiving or customizable as it just gets you started. But as you said, you still got to learn it. So it's like an opportunity cost of teach you to learn to code. Right.
Yeah, and very hard to scale too. Very hard to scale. You've heard nightmare scenarios about people having
Yeah.
to, go to market, gain a bunch of customers, then have to literally rebuild their entire solution
Yeah.
with a custom dev team, and then pay a lot of those profits that they just got to be able to
Right.
get a product back online, and
Right.
then that stall period for their customer base is crazy.
Right. And think about, like, I know you're able to provide an environment where you understand the limitations of these, like, no code solutions, right? So you can be with your groups and startups that you're working with, you can be like, okay, that's a great idea, but you might not want to do that entirely in no code solution. There's a part of it that could work because you're going to have to scale this, and this is not going to scale well. So you provide that insight that most non-technical founders would not have if they were just doing this all on their own. You run into that a lot where you're kind of holding people back from going too much into the low code.
Well, I would say as a startup advisor, right? Because technically as an accelerator director, you are advising the startups. You're
Mhm.
also somewhat like a pseudo co-founder as well. So
Mhm.
like I like to really get hands on with them, and I'll tell them like, let's walk through the solution, right? Let's go through your dev plan, or let's go through your product launch plan, and let's go through it step by step, and let's try to play devil's advocate. And
Right.
then let's also take what customers are saying, right? And let's bring some of them in to like a private session.
Mhm.
And let's try to workshop all of these things and see where there are sticking points, and then try to work backwards from that. Because sometimes I'll tell them flat out, like, oh, yeah, you don't need to do this in low code. You might need a low code front end,
Right.
but maybe you shouldn't do all of these things, especially when people are doing a lot of things with AI. I think
Mhm.
AI starts to get very controversial because people are just like, oh, well, you're not using true AI. You're just, using
Mhm.
that API key and doing this. And it's
Right.
like, it's all still AI. First and foremost, it's still AI. Even if you're utilizing OpenAI's ChatGPT API key, it's still artificial intelligence that you're using. I just think that when it comes to maxis, they frown upon something like that because they're like, no, you should be training custom models. Go grab something off of Hugging Face right now. And I just think there's so many different ways to do it. It's just about what can we do to put you in the best position where you're not going to run into situations 6 months from now where you're just like, oh my gosh, everything is crashing, everything is breaking. I don't know what to do. And I could really go out of business if I can't solve this problem within the next 2 months.
Right. And, like, having that insight of, like, you being a software developer, having worked with, like, cloud and programs and large programs, we have that insight. I'm also a developer, so we have that insight of having things fail or knowing that it didn't scale well, right? So we have that system level thinking. We're at the start here, but I can only forecast how this is going to go wrong in the sometime in the future, even if everything looks right for the first, like, 3 months or so.
I
And
was gonna
having that,
say, like, as a fellow developer, we have to plan for that.
yeah, yeah, you have to think about, like, 500 different things at once that are going to go wrong with a solution. Sometimes you actually start down a solution and then you realize this is not going to work. This is not going to work at all. I got to scrap, like, the entire month of work that I did.
Yeah,
So
we're too used to it. We're too used to it.
good to use there, but that is we embrace. That is how you learn, right?
Yeah,
You learn from the pain that you went through of doing so much work, and then realizing, God, if I had only thought about this a little bit differently, I could have saved
totally.
myself. And that's what you're providing, in your programs to people, whether they're technical founders or whether, they're non-technical founders. It's a useful insight for everyone.
Yeah, you got to plan all the way to the end. That's what I was always taught.
Now, talk to me about the DC startup scene. I feel like personally, I've started to network within the last year, and I just kind of found out like it's growing. Like there's a lot of interest in it. Like there's A16Z started a headquarter office in DC now. I think there's going to be like a lot of money from government funding with AI stuff, maybe healthcare even. People can do more now with AI.
Yeah.
So, how are you seeing the DC startups scene evolve? Do you see like more and more people are interested in startups?
Totally. I think the DC startup scene is exploding. I think it's becoming a lot like what we're seeing out in the West. I
Hmm.
think there's that genuine desire for it to be the new, Silicon Valley, the new California, the new major hub. It's like DC is so close in proximity to a lot of different things, right?
Yeah.
And the capital is here in terms of being able to support startup culture from a financial infrastructure perspective. Like it's definitely here. So I think that a lot of people are starting to get more scrappier. They're starting to get more hungry, and they're like, "Look, I want to build an amazing SaaS, company. I want to build an amazing biotech company. I want to
Hmm.
build something in the healthcare space. I want to build something in fintech." I think
Hmm.
that it's really a great opportunity right now in DC, and it's only going to continue to grow larger and larger as more interest continues to pour into the ecosystem. And I think there's a lot of really great ecosystem builders in the community as well. You have people that genuinely care. They're passionate about what they do. They're supporting a lot of different people, and there's a lot of really great diversity as well. I think that everybody's like, how can we collaborate, with underrepresented founders, with
Hmm.
founders of from different sectors in terms of not just pure tech, right? Or even the different variations of tech, like ag tech. I think that there's a very, very good scene for that. There was like an ag tech meetup in Northwest, and people were like, ag tech people are meeting up? It's like, yeah, they are.
I gotta go to that honestly. And I've gone to a big meetup in DC, and they do like all different kinds of stuff, like AI to fintech to whatever. And I noticed like there's lots of investors, maybe like smaller investors, but also like larger ones like ARK Fund and stuff like that. They're like coming in, and if you just like drive around the DC area, you kind of see the signs of like tech companies everywhere coming in, right? We
Yep.
also hear like Amazon's coming in to Virginia, a new
Hmm.
headquarter. So it's kind of like you noticing large tech companies are starting to come in, but also there's a huge biotech field here in Maryland,
Yep.
where I live. But the big fact is that DC is where all the lobbying and like things with government funding happens. So if you're trying to like capitalize on that, like you want to be close to the source of that, right? You want to be as close to the source. Like why are financial institutions in New York, right? They're near
Yeah.
Wall Street to have the influence, right? If you want to capitalize on some of the lobbying, the regulations that are happening, let's say in healthcare, you want to be close to where that's all happening. And I think like you're right, like that's probably what is going to draw people in here more.
No, you're totally right. I think you get the wealth that California has, you
Hmm.
can get it here too.
Right.
The opportunity in terms of like what other ecosystems have, like the South, right? You can get that here too. And then you have something that nobody else has in government. You
Hmm.
have the best access to government being here.
Yeah, and especially with like the way inflation's going, right? We kind of passed the old age of like just borrowing money freely. Now there's like more concerns about rates going up and a lot more debt being put on. So that kind of restricts the amount of money like a lot of people are gonna borrow. It's gonna cost more. So you kind of have to almost convince regulators to fund startups, right? Because as rates go up, you're probably going to see less funding for startups. So you want to have a certain amount of influence to say, hey, we still got to keep this small business startup scene going because that's where the innovation happens, right? So
Absolutely.
you're probably drawing on a lot of government money to keep that running. I think Kamala Harris has if I remember correctly, don't quote me, but like she said, like she wants to help startups. I don't remember the exact amount she wants to give, but like 50,000 or something like that. She wants to offer like plans, some things like that. It's I think it'll be huge. I'm excited to be like part of the community. So what else are you kind of noticing? Are you noticing certain sectors, or is it more like very, very diverse? Or are you currently working with a certain type sector that you're interested in?
I think that, like you said, Maryland and the DC area has always been a health tech, biotech type of region.
Hmm.
Me personally, I'm gonna say that I'm advocating for a lot of the companies that are kind of outside that scope without upsetting the powers to be that are here too. I love the DC being known for the biotech and the health tech, but we
Right.
got other things here too. We got a lot of great AI companies that are AI first actual type of companies where it's more so than just, yeah, we just layered some chat GPT on some stuff. We're actually building true AI infrastructure and really great dev tools and a lot of different things that is being done with it to further, things like I said in ag tech and in fintech. And I think that DC does have a good diversity meter that is kind of reaching right now when it comes to like the diversity of thought, because there's a big ed tech push as well. I think
Hmm.
that there's been a lot of ed tech solutions that have came out of DC specifically, and then also in Maryland as well. You're starting to see a lot of people push towards a lot of ed tech as well, and climate tech, which is pretty interesting too. So I think there is a really good diversity in terms of sectors here.
Actually, like the most diverse region in entirety of the US. People who have different backgrounds that are here, they have different problems. They come from different problems. And they might have an interest in solving that. If there's like more tech companies, more funding to go around, it would be very helpful to solve issues for like all people of many different backgrounds.
You said it's diverse. We're diverse in weather too. We get all four seasons. Our
Seriously,
summers are summers, our winters are winters, our falls is fall.
sometimes we have all four in one week.
That too.
So just to kind of like wrap things up a little bit, you're doing great work with the social environment. What kind of advice would you give to someone who might have an idea, but they might be a little scared to make the jump? Like they might have a stable job, let's say, and they're like, "Oh, it'd be really great to pursue this dream, create this solution, but I don't know if I can do it." Right? So, what kind of advice would you have, or do you have some sort of program that you might people can reach out to you on?
I think this is a common problem for this region, and I think a lot of people have that problem specifically here in the DMV because you have access to so many high-paying jobs. People are working for Leidos, Northrop, Amazon, Google. They have these really great $150,000 a year jobs, and you're just like, why would I go give that up to go eat
Yeah,
ramen in my uncle's garage?
yeah,
No, I don't blame you. I get
yeah,
it. But what I would say to that person is start moonlighting. Start seeing what you like and you're passionate about, right? Start seeing what you genuinely gravitate towards,
hmm,
where your passions lie, where your interests lie, and what people are. And then you also got to look at it from a different lens, right? You zoom out from there. You're like, okay, I'm passionate about this. I get energy from this. Start doing those time audits, see where your energy is going, see where things are taking away energies, color them in red. See what
right,
things are giving you energy, color them in green. Start tracking your time and start seeing where your time really goes. Then when you do that, start asking people around you, like, what do you think that I do well? Like, what is my superpower?
mm-hmm.
And then start thinking about how you can monetize that superpower from there, right? What do people pay you? What would they pay you for?
Hmm.
What can you monetize? What skills can you monetize? And
Right,
then even zooming out further than that, right? While you're moonlighting, you're gathering feedback, you're doing some of that self exploration and self discovery. You're trying some small little thing that you put out there and seeing like, hey, would they pay me to start throwing their events for them, doing event planning?
yeah,
Will they pay me if I put out this, software that can automate tax write-offs and find the best tax deduction savings? Can I sell that to my friends that do accounting? Specifically if you're technical. So somebody please steal that idea because taxes are pretty crazy.
yeah,
But yeah, I would say that's where you really start. You don't really necessarily make the jump and like I'm gonna just leave my job unless you know for a fact like okay, I've watched all the things that are my job. I'm putting my hands into different pockets in my job. I'm learning what they do in HR. I'm learning what they do in finance. I'm spending time with the CEOs if I can, if you had access to. I'm spending time learning the systems of business
Hmm.
because these are the systems that I'll have to replicate in my own business because it's going to be just me unless I find some people to really dive in it with me and really love what I'm doing. And that's another big thing too, is finding people who can support you along that journey, going to these ecosystems, these mixers, these events, plugging into the ecosystem, hopping on Eventbrite, hopping on Meetup,
Hmm.
finding different people who share those common passions and interests. And then, starting to see where you can actually start to collaborate together. Maybe you find somebody that says, hey, I'm passionate about, insure tech as well. I've been having this idea. What do you think about this? You might
Hmm.
meet a co-founder and then
Right.
plugging into the other ecosystems where you can meet people who are doing great things in the ecosystem, like myself or some of my other colleagues that are really in the ecosystems wanting to help people, wanting to meet people and can introduce you to somebody like, hey, there's an accelerator in Baltimore that you should take a part of, or you should apply to Generator. We have open programs right now at generator.com that you can go and apply for. List me as a referral because I love what you're doing. I mean, you can meet me out in public in DC or Baltimore and have that conversation with me. You have to get out.
Hmm.
When you get off of work, sometimes, don't turn on that Netflix just yet.
Yeah.
Hop on
Yeah.
Eventbrite, see what's going on, and then come out and meet people like myself.
Yeah, and I think I just kind of found after a while, like coding's nice, but like you kind of get into a state where you are a little too comfortable, and I just found like lot of things it wasn't challenging enough, right? I might have ideas, but then I was like, oh, that's gonna take effort, blah blah blah. I can't leave my job; it's too comfortable. But then there's always that, as an engineer, there's always that side of you that's kind of like, oh, I want to create something, I want to do something.
Yeah.
And what you just said about like networking, you would have two groups of people. You would have that technical person who just has the knowledge of how to create something out of code, right? And you might meet a person who's not technical and they need your help. So that's how you could just get exposure and you could be like, hey, let's meet up. I have this idea. I like your idea. I can help you code that up. Or if you're on the other side and you're not a technical person, but you still go to these meetup events or networking events, you could find a co-founder who's technical, who might be able to help you on these, and you can check to see, is this viable from like a coding perspective and stuff like that. So it's really, as you said, it's like just go out there, just go
Yeah,
out there, put yourself out there.
absolutely. Or you meet some really good people, and who knows, you can make some new friends.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest, like that's what I found is like making a lot of friends doing this. Like you and I've only talked a couple of times, but like we found like our ideas and viewpoints are like so aligned with each other. But I really appreciate you coming on. This will be my second podcast. I'm improving as I go along, but I really appreciate that you took the time. You're a very busy man, so I really do. Thank you so much.
More than happy to. I think that, when you have a platform or you're even developing a platform or you're a type of person that wants to be a part of the solution and wants to be a part of the ecosystem and move things forward, whether that's in the startup ecosystem or even when you start thinking bigger, right? How do I move things forward in the whole United States, right? Because that's where one of
Right.
the place here.
Right.
How
Have
can we
big
move
dreams.
things
You gotta have
forward?
big dreams, man.
Gotta dream big, and you've
Yeah.
got to be there for other people. You've got to be a part of the
Well, you gotta
equation of
dream
moving
big for
forward.
yourself, but also for others as well, right? You want to
Got
bring
to
them
support
on
those
with you.
dreams.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Where can people reach out to you on? Do you do LinkedIn, Twitter?
Yeah, LinkedIn is great to connect with me. You can just search my name, Claudius. I think that's how it's spelled right there at the screen. If y'all get to see that, it's Claudius. But yeah, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I drop so much stuff on there. I also have a newsletter that I run called The Innovationist. You can just type it in as it sounds, like The Innovationist, Substack.com. You can read my newsletter. I drop a bunch of tips on venture capital world. I also write on Medium, a lot of technical things on Medium. So you can follow me at Claude AI without the E because I didn't steal it from Anthropic. I was born before the company Anthropic came out. So Claude without the E. AI on Medium if you want to read any of my articles on, advancing tech, deep learning, machine learning. I am a machine learning engineer by trade. That's my specialty in the AI sector. So you can read all of my musings on deep learning and neural networks and a bunch of really geeky stuff if you're into that. But if you want to connect with me for just advice, just talk sports or even VC, then definitely connect with me on LinkedIn.
All right. All right, Claudius. This is a wealth of information, I'm sure, on your newsletter. So I'll be following it for sure. So thank you so much. I appreciate it again. Yeah, have a good
Thanks for
one.
having me, Ravi. It's been amazing, and yeah, always up from here.